Mayor, can I just ask you real quick, just first off about the abuses and all that's come out from the investigations from the Inspector General and also from the Special Master. What are your thoughts on the results?
Well, I'm very gratified that the IG did the report that he did, and I think it took a lot of, really a lot of courage to be able to look at the report and produce the findings that he did, because it would have been pretty easy. NOAA had taken the position that if we did anything wrong, it wasn't deliberate, and if we did anything wrong, it certainly was not anything that was abusive or grandiose, and you know, in proportion to the violations. And it turned out that everything was delivered. Everything, quite frankly, from my perspective, was way out of proportion to what any penalty should have been, if any, and that it was a tremendous abuse of due process. There was no equal protection under the law. Extremely corrupted in every sense of the term. So, from the standpoint of the IG's work, I'm very appreciative of it. As far as what's happened since, I think there will be reform regarding law enforcement, but the people who perpetrated the misdeeds have basically been recirculated throughout NOAA. So you're taking a situation here where people who really did not have a sense of what law enforcement is in the United States of America have been in some cases rewarded with far more exotic locations. And you know, my gut feeling is they should have been held accountable. They should have either been sanctioned or in some cases terminated. In the extreme cases, criminal sanctions should have been imposed on them.
That was the point Scott Brown had sounded like he was making too, right? So
there's no doubt about that, and I think it's appropriate. Now, what do I really think this comes down to? The rulemaking. I think the rulemaking needs to be reformed. It needs to become transparent. It needs to become accountable. It needs to be based on real science. It needs to follow the mandates of Magnus and Stevens rather than following an agenda of bureaucrats who I think are involved in an incestuous relationship with NGOs that really don't have a proper perspective on what needs to be done regarding either sections 1 through 7 and then section 8. So section 8 basically indicates that these rules have to be and regulations have to be promulgated and enforced in a manner, implemented and enforced in a manner that puts a balance between conservation and the socioeconomic hardship that communities would suffer, that families would suffer. I think they've completely ignored that. In this particular section of the country, we haven't seen any real analysis under Section 8 regarding catch shares, days at sea, and it's caused a tremendous amount of economic hardship and social harm to our fishing families. So my gut feeling is rulemaking is the key now. Hearings should be held on rulemaking. Subpoenas should be served to get the people in who've been involved in the rulemaking, who've been involved behind closed doors, who have inappropriate contacts. All of those people should come in, answer to the senators as to what they did and why, and then basically get back to the table, redraft the rules, come up with fishery management systems that are in real time, that are fair, protect the fish, but also protect the people.
What's been the effect of catch shares on your city, on your town, on the people in your community?
Well, it's you know, in all honesty, 2/3 of the vessels haven't been active for the past
it's that many.
since August, and it's put a real damper on the ability, I think, of the fishing community to remain vibrant, which means there's been an untold hardship as far as economics on the fishing families, as well as you know, that social, that interpersonal type of conflict that takes place when every man and woman is worrying about how they're going to meet the next bill. We got the worst economy since the Great Depression, and we're keeping people from working. And no fisherman's ever said to me they're looking for a handout. They're looking for an allocation so they can go out and earn a living.
They want to
work. Supply fresh seafood. So it's really, I think, done a tremendous amount of damage to the fishing community.
And last question. The whole argument for catch shares, personally to me, sounds a little odd. The fish, the commercial fishermen can fish are, I think everybody agrees, a public resource. What do you think about giving away, whoever it's to, what really is a public resource to a small group of people that can control what is a public resource? It sounds odd.
Well, the bureaucratic agenda, I think, is a consolidation of the industry. And it's a very perverse type of way of looking at the way we'll conserve fish is by consolidating the industry rather than coming up with rules that are fair and letting the capitalistic society determine exactly, and system rather, determine how fishermen survive. And they've been doing a pretty good job for 300 years in New Bedford. They've done pretty well, so they understand how to go out safely, harvest fish, bring them back, and sell them. But I think what it comes down to is there was a precursor to this. The bureaucratic agenda, some of the interest groups' agenda. Thank you very much. Some of the interest groups' agenda, quite frankly, was that they were going to consolidate the resource and that it would begin to be sold like pork bellies, like futures. And that's what they're doing now. And it's got to be completely looked at, regulated. There were speeches a couple of years ago with people saying that before you know it, these will trade as commodities. You won't have to be a fisherman. You don't even have to have. You don't have to know a can of tuna from a tuna. You'll be able to sell these as valuable resources. And we're seeing now fish exchanges open up without any regulation. It's the next great house of cards. It's not right. It's inappropriate. It's a public resource, a natural resource that the federal government now, because of its design, has turned now into something that forgets about the jobs, forgets about the quality of the seafood, and is turning it into something that is a stock certificate that's being moved around and traded, speculated on. That's a major problem.
Last question. Was either last year or the year before, Senator Kerry said, and of course this was early on before a lot of this unfolded, but he said that Jane Lubchenco was the fisherman's friend. No, do you think he'd want to take that back today?
Yeah, I don't, and I don't think Senator Kerry feels that way anymore. I think Senator Kerry's been very, very good about looking at things as they develop and beginning to call it a major problem. So I think
as it unfolded, I think he's probably seen.
Senator understands. I don't think the senator has been doctrinaire as far as support of commerce. If anything, he has been extremely critical of them, and I appreciate that. I've had many conversations with him. He understands that commerce really has not been.
And Barney Frank certainly has been there supporting this community.
Barney Frank has been a tremendous champion, and before that, Senator Kennedy, Senator Kirk, and now Senator Brown all understand what we're up against, and we're making some real headway. 2 years ago, people were saying, "Oh, stop your belly aching," and go work with them. I tried to work with them for 4 years, and I realized that anything that they were doing was counter to what Magnuson-Stevens requires, and that's the key. If you don't interpret the law in a way that Congress expected you to, it means that you've got a bureaucratic agenda. You're working for someone else. You're going to outlast the elected officials, the congressmen, the senators, the Commerce Secretary, the President of the United States. You've got a hard group core of bureaucrats in here who think they know best regarding fish or know best about these issues concerning law enforcement, and one by one will pull these threads and show that it just was not appropriate under the law.
Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.